one of those parties where you have to be invited, you have to be put on the list.
Yeah.
And it was on top of a hotel on Sunset Boulevard, and there's a pool, and like everybody's there. And we were trying to get through this crowd to go take some pictures in the pool, which we were supposed to do. And these girls were in front of us, and we're like, "Excuse me." I was like, "Oh, do you want to take a picture with us?" "No, I want you to get out of my way. I don't want to take a picture with you." So that's the kind of people that were there. I had to leave.
You get a lot of that.
Yeah.
You definitely do get a lot of that because like everybody wants to be a part of the mix, and but they don't want to actually go through the hard stuff.
No. And I think one of the things that really kind of put the nail in the coffin for me to leave, I was in an improv class in Hollywood. Across the street, because there's windows, so across the street, there was some homeless guy, and they weren't sure if he was alive or not. There was like medics working on him, and like there's an ambulance lights going off, and they were doing CPR. And I still don't know if the guy was dead or not, but out of nowhere, this girl and her photographer just get up to the ambulance, so she's doing her headshots as she's posing, and like right over this dude, the poor guy is dying or whatever he's doing, and she's just kind of doing her poses and getting her headshots in, and like, dude, I don't know, this town is.
Doesn't that kind of show you like life in its full spectrum of duality?
Right.
Because you have life and death right there.
Yeah.
And it just shows you like people who are too like narcissistic or egotistical in any kind of sense. They feel like the world revolves around them.
Right.
But reality is quite opposite. Where the world, your family and your friends might revolve around you, but that's it. Outside of that, the world continues to spin.
Right.
So I think it's really interesting when you're a film director and you can really serve somebody a universe or serve somebody a world where they have to tap into your vision. And at that point, their rules of understanding of reality goes out the window completely. That's why I like Quentin Tarantino as far as a movie director.
Right.
Because he has the ability to rewrite history in a sense. He's done a couple movies that have kind of gone against reality.
Right.
Like you got Django, and you also have Hollywood.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yes. Yeah. To start this off, because I already hit record. I don't know if you know that.
No,
did you like that movie?
You know, I haven't seen it, and I wanted to see it because I love history, especially Hollywood history. There's so much there, and what was cool is I got to work on a movie called Gangster Squad, and what I mean by that is we did behind the scenes, like on the DVDs you get the special features. I was like an editor, an assistant editor, working on that stuff. So we got to work on this movie called Gangster Squad, and two things with that. One, it was really cool to see because it's based on. Did you ever see Gangster Squad?
I didn't see it.
It's based on a Jewish gangster, Mickey Cohen, back in the 40s.
Okay.
And so the mafia didn't really get to California that much, but there was something there. But anyway, it was the history of Mickey Cohen, and it's based on a true story. And they would show like the club that he owned and this and that. And like I went to go look where his club was, right? Because it was real, and now it's a Target. Or I was an IHOP, one of the two. And then like some other thing where like this is where, you know, they had I don't know, some other cool thing from the 40s, and now it's like a Staples.
What is that?
You know, it's just really like soulless and just awful. The other thing about that is the original ending was the gangsters come out of the movie screen and start shooting at the people.
Okay.
So that was shot, and they were getting ready to put everything together. A week later, Aurora happens.
Oh, wow.
And so everything got put on hold. I got laid off for a little bit because they had to rewrite a new ending.
Holy shit.
So it's like, it's weird. I mean, who cares? It affects my job because, you know, people got shot. But it's such a weird town. I forgot where I was going with this. Oh, the history. So I like history. So especially Hollywood history.
Yeah.
And so I would like to see that movie. Totally. I just haven't gotten around to it. But.
Okay. Hollywood history. That's very interesting to me. I read a little bit of something about how Hollywood was originated. And from what I take, Hollywood necessarily wasn't supposed to be what it became. It was almost supposed to be something that was controlled, contrived, like there's some sort of Christianity background that goes along with it. But there's a cult-like aspect that goes along with Hollywood. And I believe that this is true if we look fast forward into the future when the Me Too movement started to hit. When you hear of things that are happening as far as sexual assault and things of that nature, and the Me Too movement, you start to think, okay, this is just like any kind of organized cult where you get so big that you can't control everything inside of it, to where people start to make their way outside of the bubble.
Right.
And that's where you start to hear about the atrocities that happened within inside of the cult.
Right.
So Hollywood was very much like a cult in a sense, because it took into the 2000s, 2010s or so before we actually started to hear of how disgusting the culture was. Because you have your hitmen like the Weinsteins and things of that nature, who take the whole burden of the hit like they're the only boogeyman that existed.
Right.
But you start to realize that this was a culture that went outside of the music industry. This was also our movie industry. This was in the music industry. This was in just capitalism in general. Because there was bosses that were up in fucking companies like something that's non-entertainment related, but let's say IBM,
Right.
or like some sort of company like that, where they had so much power and they had so much understanding of what their realm was, that they could literally have their way with any employee that they wanted. And we also know about this because of our porn culture. If you watch our porn culture, it really shows you the darkness that humanity can really take us to. Because a lot of the most popular pornography genres and things of that nature, which I've studied,
Right.
because I've done my own independent research,
Yeah.
but also on a scientific level,
Right.
you start to see where male masculinity and power starts to become a commodity in this porn world. Like, for example, the casting couch, where there's a whole genre that's created in pretending to sell a dream to a woman. And at the end of it, it's like, haha, there was no job. You just got fucked.
Right.
So that right there is a satire parody of what was a real world thing.
Right.
Because we really lived in a world where men controlled everything. Caucasian men controlled everything to a further extent. So America really is a wasteland that we try to polish off as something else that it isn't. So when it comes to movies, I love this, because movies are very special in the sense that you can create a universe that sparks a thought in a mind that will completely change the world. It's just like music. It's just like music, because like, look at Tupac. Tupac said, I might not change the world, but I'm going to spark the mind of somebody who does change the world. So when it comes to films, and when I want to think about the most impactful films that have touched you, what are the top 3 movies that really, first things to pop in your mind are the movies that really set you off?
Mine are, I'm more of a comedy, so like one of my favorites is Fast Times at Ridgemont High. It's not funny, but Goodfellas. I love mafia stuff.
Yes.
Of course. It's mainly like anything in the 80s, like the 80s, because they could be just a simple movie, but it told just a simple story. And I think story is everything. If you don't have a good story, then it doesn't matter who's in it, or what jokes you have, or what special effects. It's just boring to me. So
it's a backbone.
Yeah, exactly. God, what else is impactful? I think one of the most powerful movies I saw, and I don't need to see it again, is Apocalypse Now. I saw it because I needed to see it because it's a classic.
Let's talk about this one.
Yeah, because I hadn't seen this first time I saw it was like, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And I watched it and it's great, and I'm like, I don't need to see that again.
What is it about it? Like, if you had to strip it down, what do you pick from it?
I remember the bowl getting cut for real, like his throat cut or whatever it was. I don't remember. It's because there's so many things in there that have been parodied. You know, like Marlon Brando being just eating, or you know, like the horror, or I love the smell of mustard gas in the morning.
Yeah.
So when it's kind of hard to see those serious movies later, when there's already all these parodies,
The Simpson parodies
right.
and stuff like that.
So it's hard to take it serious, even though it's still a good movie, when you saw this first. You know.
Right, but also you got to think about how cutting edge it was when it first was introduced. That's the reason why there was a ripple effect that led to our modern times, right? Stanley Kubrick, he is so powerful to this day.
Right.
There's people who are eating off of his crumbs to this very fucking day. There's people outside of the genre that are eating off this dude's creativity. Look at Lady Gaga. Lady Gaga was obsessed with Kubrick, and you could tell by her videos like Bad Romance. Kanye West is obsessed with Kubrick. You could tell by the way that he cares so much about like the classical aesthetics of everything he does. So, what was it about Stanley Kubrick? If you could tell me, because if you're, I hate to say this, but if you're a guy who's in film, right, and you don't have a respect for Kubrick, yeah, it's really hard to say that you're in film.
Yeah, it's yeah, I think you have to. Like, he's right up there with Coppola.
He's an institute,
and he's like, I know film came before those guys and Spielberg, but for me, from my generation, those are like the grandfathers of movie production. Even like George Lucas, even though I'm not a huge Star Wars fan, but still, he's right up there. You know, Coppola I really like because Godfather and anything else he touched, and then also his daughter puts out some good stuff too. So
totally.
Yeah, we studied him in school, and I remember when I think he's the one that died because he was doing Eyes Wide Shut or something. You know,
there is some sort of conspiracy that comes along with Eyes Wide Shut, and the fact that he died after he did that one.
Right.
Yes. But that kind of leads into the whole Illuminati conspiracy. But he is a master level genius that it would not surprise me that he was on their radar. If anybody was on their radar, it should have been him.
Well, there's rumors that he's the one that shot the moon landing. Yeah.
Yes.
So, you know, that goes back to Hollywood kind of being a dark place. But
yeah. Well, I know for a fact, because I've done some thorough research, that he did shoot footage for the moon landing. But it was under the guise that we might not be able to beat the Russians to the moon. So what we need is to be able to fake that we did. And then they did beat the Russians to the moon. But the problem was that footage still leaked. Yeah. So there was footage that leaked that was fake, and there was footage that was real. The thing that was mind-blowing about to me, was the fact that the fake footage and the real footage were indistinguishable.
Right. Especially back then.
He was such a genius that he took everything into consideration. And to this day, I don't think we have minds like that.
No.
You could read 30 fucking books in a month. He would read 30 books a month. This guy was a super genius.
I think that kind of carries over to any, and that's a problem I have. Maybe it's because I'm getting older, but I noticed in comedy, in music, in any form of entertainment, there's not those giants anymore that can carry. Everybody wants to hurry up and get famous without learning the trade, without going through paying your dues. Yeah. They want to be Instagram famous instead of hitting clubs and bars and those kind of shows to learn the craft.
Right.
They just want to hurry up and be famous. They don't want to learn from the ground up, and it's kind of showing like Saturday Night Live. Like, they have to bring old cast members back.
Right.
For whatever reason.
To bring validity.
Right. Like, that shouldn't be, like, nobody's dressing up like Saturday Night Live characters anymore.
True.
It seems like in every, even I watch professional wrestling, and even then they're bringing in older people. Like, I don't know what's going on at the start level, but there's something missing as far as some kind of training, some kind of mentoring, or something is missing in every facet of entertainment, I think
that there's a magic to the callback. Because there's like nostalgia is huge amongst everyone on earth. It's a spiritual thing almost to a certain extent, because deja vu kind of goes along with nostalgia in some sort of way. So like when you feel like you've been somewhere before, nostalgia might be an artificial version of deja vu. Yeah. Because when you have deja vu, you feel like I've been here before. Some people will say it's almost like a checkpoint, like you're playing some sort of video game, right? But like if we have been through an experience and we know it because it's being regurgitated to us in some sort of format, like the internet, then it kind of gives us that same dopamine release. Like, oh my god, look at the Rugrats, Chucky, Power Rangers, like things that we used to have in the past, right? So I think that plays into fact when we think about what a callback is. But even when we talk about it in the short term, like there'd be comedians who would be telling a joke and they'd be 5 minutes into the joke and then they bring you back to the first minute. There's something special that our brain really rewards about being able to recognize something that is meant for you to be to recognize it. So the reason why I bring up Kubrick is because I am somebody who's fascinated with the ability to create universes, to create hidden eggs inside of the visual that are not meant to be detected immediately. You are somebody who, from what I gathered, you respect the whole craft of creating film, where it takes knowing, trying, executing. Like, I can see you being from an older school, like how you were describing, where not everything is microwavable. If anything, you have to put the time and the effort and spend the money to get to a certain aspect of what you're doing. Like master level craft. Almost like you were on your way to doing it the original way. And then the internet and technology kind of happened. That's how I am with music.
Right.
Because I was on a path. I started when I was 13 years old. I'm 33 now. Right? But I was learning the scholastics of hip hop. And I was on my way to creating everything in the original context of hip-hop. And then the internet happened. And immediately I had to figure out how to work myself in this space because I was young enough to. So I imagine you being similar in the sense that, yes, all this technological advances were happening, and you had to figure out how to save time, money, resources, and everything, and try to fit into the new mold of the way that things were going.
Yeah, it's, I'm always, what are the fundamentals of things? What are break it down to the basics of what you're doing, and then you can add things on top of it. But it has to, those things that you add on top have to be for a reason. You can't just, like for example, when I remember we got my first Mac with the editing stuff on it, I threw in a star wipe or a page flip just because it's there. It didn't mean anything. It doesn't signify any part of what I was editing.
For the people who don't know, what is that about? What's that?
A page flip, like you go to one cut to another cut, and it's literally like a crappy looking, like as if a page flipping, like transition.
Transition.
Yeah. And same with like a star wipe, when you see a star, and inside the star is the next scene, you know. So I've always been and I think it's my film teacher. He scared the hell out of me. He's a great teacher. His name's Sal Tanacchio, this large Italian man from New York who yelled at everybody, but it was a great teacher, and he instilled in us story is everything. Like, he hated music videos, most music videos, because they had no story, and the really good music videos have story to them. And I never saw that until he started putting that into us, and so I think, and I like to put in little details, like the devil's in details of just, you know, if I'm going to do when I'm editing, for example, if I'm going to do some kind of like flash transition, I want to put a sound effect to it, like the sound effect caused the transition. You know what I mean? Instead of just like throwing it in, this looks cool.
Triggers.
You know, why are you doing that? Like, what's the purpose of this? Everything has to mean something.
Rhyme or reason, meaning.
Yeah.
Okay, so TikTok. Transitions are huge. The app gives you ability to create a short form film. This is another step in that sort of innovation where I'm talking about how, like, you continue to move forward in the direction which is traditional, and then you see so many different shortcuts and things that are happening where you could be like, dude, I would murder this. Like, it's too easy.
Right.
So when you see something like TikTok, do you have any inclination to kind of like master something like that with your skill set?
No. I'm so, like, my biggest fear is never learning anything new and then falling behind. Like, I don't want to be like 3 generations like, oh, what is Twitter? You know, and then I'm like, well, that came out 10 years ago, I better catch up. So I always try to like be aware. But TikTok, I know it's popular, and I see a lot of people just lip syncing to other people's songs, and those people get like viral. I'm like, you didn't do anything except be in your bedroom and lip sync to whoever.
True.
And I think that's just a generational thing, maybe because I'm older and I have a TikTok account, but I've never used anything on that.
I have more insight because I've been in the app, and it is a generational thing, but it is a forward moving direction. Meaning that things won't go back the other way. So the thing that's really interesting about it, it's very short form. You can do 15 seconds to a minute, or you can even do 3 minutes. Well, the reason that I think is interesting is because there's more than just that sort of content, which is the lip syncing stuff that gets popular, right? But there's also information that's spread on this app. Like, if you're on this app, and it's all about algorithms and what you're into, it's going to start feeding you only that. But like, there is straight up news, there's like conspiracy theories, there's so many different things that are on this app, and you start to realize something. People had no problem with YouTube. They had no problem with Twitter. This is just better for them.
Right.
Because the way that the world is moving, smaller, more condensed versions of information are more easily accessible.
Right.
So, like, you have a kid who's on his way to school. He's listening to TikTok. He can get about, 9-10 of those TikToks in before he gets to school. And it means more. So, the reason why I think that this is interesting is I'm starting to see everybody in the world start to create TikTok accounts. And this is actresses in movies. This is everybody. So even though they might not get their bread and butter from this app, they're using it to bring attention to their stuff. And you would think that it would only be a certain demographic that wouldn't traditionally be into what you do. But that's not true. Because the same reason you have a TikTok is the same reason everyone has one.
Right.
Because if I was somebody who would be into your documentary, which we're going to get into, I promise, I would most definitely be finding out about your documentary for something like TikTok before anything else. And you would think maybe my sort of content wouldn't go down that pipeline fast enough, but that's not true. Because the way that the app is designed, it's just that if there's an audience for it, they're going to immediately gravitate towards it immediately. Because there is the things that you would see on TikTok that gain popularity, you would not believe. There's accounts that have millions and millions of followers. They're just cleaning bathrooms. That's all they're fucking doing. So that means to tell me that this is the niche universe.
Right.
This is the niche universe. So whatever you are into that you would think that has a small subgroup, well, it's all the people that could ever be in the subgroup. They're waiting for the content.
Right.
So, let's say you do something like black and white videos, noir videos, or something that's really super sophisticated in the film world. Well, guess what? Rather than 30 people, you might get 3,000 people. You might get 30,000 people because they're all there waiting for that content.
Right.
See, knowing that, doesn't it make you almost want to approach things a little bit differently?
Well, it's one of those things where I don't feel like I know enough about it, and I try to, whatever the new thing is, try to understand it or look on YouTube, and I want to understand what this is from beginning to end. And I haven't with TikTok. When I first got it, I felt like this is before people started using it more, but it was, I felt like I was too old to be on it. You know what I mean?
Stigma.
I don't want to be the old guy on TikTok when there's younger kids on there that they're just doing that. I feel weird.
You know what changed it? Pandemic. The pandemic changed it. Because before the pandemic, it used to be Musical.ly, which was the thing that teenagers and shit used to lip sync to it, right? But when the pandemic happened, all the adults in the world said, hey, let me look into what my fucking kids are getting into. And what they figured out is that this is another YouTube. Right. This is another Google. It's so much more. And the fact that you leave it just for kids and avoid it creates a lot of dangerous aspects to it. Because a lot of predators and things will thrive in an area that adults stay out of.
Right.
So it's good that adults are now on TikTok.
Right.
Because a lot of the shit that was going on has come to an end.
Yeah.
And I have a daughter. Do you have kids? No kids?
No, she's a dog.
But you imagine what it would be like if you had a kid who had access to a cell phone.
Right.
And there was an app that wasn't for any adults, just for kids. I'd be like,
freak me out.
Let's check it out.
Yeah, let's look at that.
You're not going to keep me out of this.
No, what was interesting talking to somebody I was interviewing, still going. I think I have the same, total side note, I was doing an interview, I think I have the same app here. Interviewed these guys, awesome interview for, 30 minutes to an hour and a half, something like that. Mm-hmm. And I get a phone call, and it stops the app and wipes out everything and I didn't know until I got home. I'm like, oh, this is wonderful.
Dude, I've had a couple podcasts go missing.
Just missing. Yeah. I'm starting recording podcasts on reel to reel. Anyway, so I was interviewing somebody, and we're talking about music, and they were a manager of a band back in the 90s, and they're shipping off their demo to record companies back when there was record companies. And the rule was when you ship a tape to a record company, that song that you're shipping off, it needs to get to the hook within 30 seconds. And now with Lil Nas on TikTok, it's so fast. Now it's you gotta get to the hook in 6 seconds or 10 seconds, something like that. It's really short. You gotta get right if you're sending it off to a record company.
Wow.
So it's weird how TikTok has changed that game. And I've noticed that everything is sped up. Cartoons are sped up. I remember I like Back to the Future.
Me too.
And Back to the Future 2, they released it again when it was supposed to, because it was in the future, 2015.
Yep.
So they re-released it on the theaters. And I went out there, and I can just tell all the teenagers were so bored. Like, it was just taking forever. It wasn't boom, 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 boom. It was just because that's how movies were back then. You kind of play it out. Yeah, exactly. So I think just everything is such short attention span theater, and it's hard to keep up with that, because if you don't adapt, you're going to be left behind. And that's my biggest fear. And so I don't always have to like it. I just have to, accept it. So,
or understand.
Understand it, yeah. And I'm usually totally up for all new technology. I'm kind of a nerd with it. But yeah, I've been lazy with the TikTok. Whatever the next version is that comes out that's after TikTok, I'll probably try to maybe get into that one.
TikTok is YouTube.
Yeah.
It's not going anywhere. It's definitely going to be around for 10, 20 years.
Yeah.
And it's because of how powerful it is now.
Right.
When you come into the game swinging and winning, you get the money, you get the resource and everything. Look, they tried to ban it in America.
Yeah.
That did not happen.
Yeah.
The president wasn't strong enough to make that happen. So it just goes to show you that even something that is tied to another country's government, it doesn't matter. People don't give a fuck.
No.
They let you know right away. Like, dude, you can do whatever you want. It's like the way that the government had tapped in phones, and like after 9/11, they did the Patriot Act just to snoop on Americans.
Right.
Like, let's be real. That's what they did.
Oh, sure.
They wanted to sneak into everybody's house.
Yeah.
And so what they did is they used the crisis, which was 9/11, to go after their small little microscopic problem, but then attack us on a huge massive level.
I can imagine having that job, listening in on phone calls, how boring that would be for most people.
It would be only interesting to perverts.
Yeah.
Because think about this. You're the only people who have the vigor to sit there and sift and look through people's personal belongings are people who are looking for kink.
Right.
Reality.
Yeah.
Because regular individuals who have a wife, family, kids, a life, not even necessarily kids, but like just a whole life, they want to get out of their fucking job and they want to go back to their life.
Right.
They don't want to be like, I'm dying to go to work today.
Ooh, a coffee cup.
Oh, wow. Wait a minute. What? Did you hear that? She was probably masturbating when she was talking. Sick fucks.
Right.
But this is what we breed. Because when you give people privilege, the nastiest of who they are really comes to the forefront. That's why, like, I have a buddy who's deep in the comic book world. He does comic book conventions. Like, he used to do rap shows. His name's Illuminati. You can see his art everywhere. Like, he's just a huge influence to me. Me and him were talking about a comic book that I maybe one day want to fund. And what it is like these government agencies like the FBI and the CIA, where they have too much freedom, too much resources, and they become the back ends. I think that's very interesting. I think the super villains that are created out of the FBI and CIA is a comic book.
Oh, definitely.
Because it really opens your mind to corruption and what it really looks like.
Could happen or has happened. Yeah.
It has happened.
Yeah.
We just don't know.
Yeah.
Because how is it that we only find out these great super stories when they're black or Mexican or like a different, like we never find out these like white super like fucking villain guys, and it's because obviously we write the history, but we want to make it look a certain way.
I mean, we know.
Yeah. But look at Rick Ross.
Yeah.
Have you heard of Freeway Ricky Ross?
I've heard Rick Ross. Yeah.
Yeah, not the rapper, but the actual real Rick Ross. There was a real Rick Ross. Yeah, and the rapper got his name from this guy's story. But this is the thing. The real Rick Ross was from California, right? He was in cahoots with CIA agents and he didn't know it.
Was he the Crip dude?
I'm not sure about his gang affiliation, but what I do know about his story is that he was working with CIA agents and he didn't know it.
Oh.
They were giving him work, cocaine that they got from Colombia, that they got through American Airlines. Because they would put the cocaine, sorry, rapper brain, on the planes and fly them in commercially.
Wow.
And then when they would get there, they would transport it to the hood. This really happened. This was America in the 80s. Right? So there was a guy like Rick Ross who had a work ethic that was so incredible that he was able to net $3 million a month. And sometimes $9 million a month. Upwards to who knows how much money he would network. And the only reason why they brought him down, was because they didn't need him anymore.
Right.
that tells me is that they were doing an operation to destroy. But what we found out was that they were trying to destroy the hood, but they were also using that money to fund proxy wars in the Middle East. You know, like if me and you had some knock'em sock'em fucking rock'em sock'em boppers or whatever, where we can go home to see our kids every fucking night, but the boppers get destroyed. That's what was going on in the Middle East, where you would have Russia and America going at each other with their fucking knock'em sock'em fucking.
Yeah.
Where you had Iran and Iraq going at each other. That's the reason why Saddam is even a thing.
Right.
Because we funded him. We put a lot of money into Iraq. People will never say this, but you know that Saddam Hussein got the key of the city to Detroit in 1983.
Really?
This is searchable. It's on Google. Eminem brought it up in his fucking autobiography. Because of course he's from Detroit.
Right.
So let me tell you this. America has always been known to feed their babies, grow them up, and then to serve those motherfuckers to the wolves. And that's exactly what the government does. They will use you until they can get rid of you. So, I forget why I get on this tangent. But
no, you can go. It's so weird because, especially back on YouTube, I'll start off with like, God, how do I do this effect in After Effects? And then like an hour later, I'm looking up lizard people controlled by whatever, and this whole I'm like so deep into the internet. I feel like the Men in Black are gonna come and pick me up from work. I'm like, what the hell just happened? You know. So it's always interesting. Again, interesting stories, whether they're true or not. Some of them, I'm like, yeah, I think that could actually make sense to me. Like,
well, check this out.
Yeah.
You brought up the Back to the Future thing.
Yeah.
You know that is one of the movies from the past that is filled with so many hidden eggs and predictive, futuristic, just ideas within the film.
Right.
Like, if you watch this movie under a certain context, you start to see that this movie was a message. There was predictive programming that was put into this movie. The fact that this movie is to warn you of a terrorist attack that is going to happen 30 years in the future. This movie does that. It constantly has hidden messages inside of it about 9/11. Even the fact that there is a terrorist attack that is going to happen at the mall.
Right.
They incorporate that into the messaging. The fact that they have newspapers that read the tower has been struck.
Yeah.
Twin Towers. This movie is riddled with different little conspiracies, which makes you feel like maybe we are in a simulation.
Yeah.
This is fucking crazy. Because how in the fuck are they able to do this? Almost as if somebody is in the future pre-programming the past. It's amazing. They did the same thing with JFK fucking metaphors in the movie. There's even a head of JFK inside of a fucking pawn shop that's across the street from the tower that gets struck. It's just beautiful.
Huh.
It's a work of fucking... It's almost like a computer did a fucking art piece.
Right.
Because that's how intricate it is. I have a clip that I could show you, specifically where somebody spent 100 hours probably making this clip. And it is beautiful. What it shows you is that this is... If you were in the 80s and knew what happens in the future, you'd be like, yes, this is a commercial for what's going to happen. Because the movie really is Back to the Future. What is he trying to get to the future to bring back? What's the whole cause of the movie? If you take it in the context that Marty McFly is somebody who's just like me or like you or vice versa, that would go into the past, grab a nugget of the past and try to bring it back to the future before it was too late. That's what the whole Back to the Future is. Because it's not simply like, oh, he goes to the past, he goes to the future, cool, well, that's like going to the beach or something. Right. It's not that. There's something, there's a race, there is some sort of like thing that he's trying to defeat. He's trying to beat something. He's trying to prevent something from happening. That's what the whole feeling, the anxiety that comes from Back to the Future is. Would you agree?
I don't know. I'm going to have to go watch it again now. I have it on DVD. I haven't seen it in a while.
Well, think about it. The whole Back to the Future premises is anxiety.
Yeah.
It really is. The whole thing.
Yeah.
It's not a walk in the park, so to speak.
Right.
In any aspect. It's always adversity. The whole movie. It's uphill. the whole series, all three of them.
Right.
They figured out a way to replicate it.
Right.
If you were to watch it again, you would start to see what I'm saying.
Right.
That guy created that movie in a sense that he could predict something that, or he's gonna enlighten people to open their eyes to something that's coming. And this is something that is underneath the surface. If you were a surface level viewer, like a lot of us children are, you will not see this. But when you start to look at the deeper meaning and metaphoric and triple layered things, like Stanley Kubrick's movies, the fact that he was telling you about the Native American genocide and also the fucking fake moon landing in the same movie, The Shining, a lot of people never fucking knew that. When you start to see how he used the articles of clothing and the paintings on the wall and the music choices, like to the point of where anything could be a clue to what he's talking about, then you start to see the level of genius, and it's crippling. Especially if you're in that world.
Right. Do you think, I agree, especially back to Kubrick, you know, sometimes they'll put, just for example, they'll paint the door red because it means something, or they'll have little subtleties here and there because it subconsciously it does something to you as you're watching it. Do you think that is lost with new directors? With new
Not
movies?
Not all. Because there are some guys who cut through. Yeah. Like you got your Christopher Nolans, and like there's a couple guys who understand that, like M. Night Shyamalan. Like he gets shitted on a lot, but what he did, when he hit, he changed the fucking world. Yeah. Sixth Sense, Signs.
I love that movie. Yeah, I like Signs too. I like most of his movies. A lot of people hated him.
Just those two movies alone are in the top 25 of all movies ever made. Because Sixth Sense, it had everybody in the world. Every single person who watched that movie and didn't get hinted. They were, huh?
And everybody's like, oh, I already knew that. I'm like, bullshit.
Bull fucking shit. That movie was shot so good that you did not know that. It was so perfect from the way that it was written to the way it was shot that there was no fucking way you would have saw it coming. It's got to be one of the best twists of all time, and it doesn't get talked about because of who the director is. There's been a smear campaign on his movies. I don't know if it's because of his own lack of interest in his own work, but when you have Sixth Sense and Signs, I can see how you lose the motivation to continue to create.
Well, he was, when Sixth Sense came out, and I think Unbreakable right after that. He was looked at as the next Spielberg, and then I don't know what happened after that. If just his movies just didn't rate well or what. Like the rest of the movies I saw later because I didn't want to. Because like these are trash. And then I'd go and watch them. Like I kind of like it.
See,
like, I don't know what.
But you have the whole skill set. You have the whole lens. Because you're like a rapper in the sense where I listen to a rap record. Right? No, well, you could though, because like when I listen to a rap record, I can hear like everything. I can see everything. I can see the recording session because I know what it looks like if I was to do it, and that's where you come into play because you know what a scene would look like if you directed it, if you filmed it. You know what you would have choose to do, what you would have not have done, to the point of, and you even a fan of like people who are greater than you, icons and such. That you could recognize when somebody's using a signature that isn't there, and you can recognize when they're experimenting too, or when they're just not even trying. They're just throwing whatever into the fucking air. You can recognize all that stuff because it's really specific to what's possible in the whole taste palette of what you do. Because if you are a true student, you know what is possible to its absolute limit.
Well, the other part, and this is horrible for my wife, doesn't like this at all, is I'll make a comment, it's like, oh, look at that lighting. Look at the shadow on that. Exactly. Like, that's terrible. Or it's like, I'll rewind something we're watching because there's subtitles. Like, oh, they misspelled this. They misspelled knife. And she's like, I don't care. Can we just watch this? I'm like, sorry, this is just kind of what I've been trained, like, because my day job is I have to, because I make commercials and web content and this kind of stuff. So I get done with the project and I have to look at it 300 times to make sure that I don't have the misspellings, and sometimes they'll still get through. But these little things. So it's like when I see TV shows and I see that, and it's like the History Channel or it's like NBC or these big time that those mistakes shouldn't happen, but they still happen. Or it's a weird cut, or like why they do that, or
This. I'm so glad we took the podcast to this point because I feel like we've got such a fucking incredible, interesting piece so far. But now I want to bring it back to who you are and the origins of your story. Kind of walk me through to who Toney Moser is and everything about you. Like, if I was the first set of ears that you got.
Well, I committed my first murder at age 6. I was kidding. I was 8 years old. I grew up here for the most part. Moved here when I was 5. Somehow we got a hold of a film camera as a kid. There was no film, it didn't work, but it fascinated me. I was like, I want to make movies, and I was already thinking about getting props, and I was like, I don't know, 8 or 9 or something like that. And then in high school, my friends and I made movies, and quote-unquote movies. So my mom had to go rent a camcorder from Safeway because we didn't have any money to buy a video camera. So I'd write the scripts, and we'd write, but there's no editing, so we'd have to like shoot it all in camera. And then we'd make people watch it, and the only people laughing were my friends.
How'd you get into writing scripts?
I don't know. I was such a huge fan of John Hughes because I always paid attention in the 80s that he wrote and directed, and I thought that was really cool. And I also like Saturday Night Live and like SCTV and that kind of stuff. I always liked writing stories, and like even actually.
Do you remember your first writings?
Yeah, 2nd grade. We had to write our own books.
Okay.
And I don't remember what it was, but I remember I really liked it. There was something about creating a story with your imagination, and wow, because there's no rules. It's like dreaming. You can just freestyle. And so I think it started there, and then I would just here and there just get little, things, with the camera or. I always liked watching behind the scenes stuff and seeing how things are made, and that interests me. And then I was, watching television because everybody liked television. Television movies. My dad would take me to movies all the time in the 80s. So I always liked the movies, and there was just something about it. And that's all I ever wanted to do. While in high school, I was going to be a famous musician, of course. My band was going to be rich and famous. That never even came close to panning out. But I had a bunch of guitars, so that's good enough.
You play guitar?
I used to. I mean, I still have some guitars, but I haven't really played in a while. I used to have like 6 or 7 guitars.
That's who your background is, musically.
Yeah. But it's weird. That's another thing. It's like I was interested in it long enough to understand everything about it. And then I'm like, okay, I'm done with that, and I can move on to something else. And that actually helped me with music videos. Just timing and, because music videos are basically a song. It's a dance. You have to, cut to the music or whatever. So after high school, I still wanted to go to film school, but my grades were shit, and I'm like, there's no way I'm going to go to USC. I really wanted to go to USC, but that was never going to happen. My grades are crappy and didn't have any money.
What was it about USC?
I don't know. I think because Spielberg went there, Kubrick went. I think Kubrick went there. Coppola, that was the film school.
That was the elite school.
Yeah, and it's either that or NYU, and I'm like, there's no way.
Do you think that was coincidence or the school that had an effect on these guys?
I think it was just time and place. I think those people just happened to come together at the same time.
They would have blew up anywhere else.
Right. If they went to Columbia Basin College, it was just.
But it was fast track because the location.
Right. It's California. It's right there. That's where the movie industry is, and so.
I gotta ask you one of these days about Lolita, about Kubrick's movie Lolita, because I think it's super controversial.
Yeah.
But I also believe that the mainstream is now moving in a direction where they commercialize even.
Right.
And I can see something like that being big in the future.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, because of the way that the commercial world starts to push things.
Right.
But that'll be like, we'll have to do like a segment where we just talk about movies and genres.
That'd be really cool.
Because I feel like just in that world, we could really do like a 2 or 3 hour podcast.
Yeah.
Really. But I want to keep this about you.
Yeah.
I think that specifically your journey, your brain, the way you think about things is really intriguing.
Yeah.
So to continue, where you at?
So graduated high school, moved to Seattle in '94, and I wanted to be a music producer at first. So I went to the Art Institute for about a quarter, and it was crazy expensive. And I'm like, nah, I'm not doing that. But I really wanted to get into film. I didn't know how. I didn't know what school I could go to. And so I'm like taking classes here, dropping out, working. And then I finally found a school, Seattle Center. It's just a community college, but it was a 2-year program. Learned some cool stuff, learned the basics. And then I was like, well, I'm going to eventually have to go to LA because that's where that's what the thing is. And so I'm just like, I don't know how to get there. And so someone mentioned I should, I guess separately, kind of get ahead of myself. I should, if I so back to being a writer, I should go talk to comics, stand-up comics, to see if I can write for them. And I thought, okay, that's kind of cool. And then a friend of mine was like, how about we just do the stand-up? I was like, okay, that was a better way to go. And so I did stand-up for like 10, 12 years, something like that. And looking back, like, I couldn't imagine me going up to a comic like, hey, I want to write for you. Because that would just, it would not be good. It would be very bad. And so
I'm still stuck on the fact that you did 10 and 12 year stand-up. Did you have any like run-ins with any comedians that made it kind of?
Like there was like, you know, like Mitch Hedberg would come to you know, and come to Seattle Comedy Underground. I got to open up for Jim Gaffigan and Daniel Tosh.
Everybody you just mentioned them.
Yeah.
Is like top 25. Like Mitch Hedberg.
Yeah, Mitch Hedberg's great. I think Mitch Hedberg and Gaffigan are my favorites. Daniel Tosh, not so much.
He had a Dane Cook kind of thing.
Yeah. But then when I moved down to LA, there's, you go to the comedy clubs and there's like, you know, Harry Shearer and there's, you know, you see, I don't know, Kevin Nealon and or David Spade or whatever.
Did you learn anything profound about being a stand-up comedian?
I did, and what's weird. I was just talking to Mom about this the other day. I didn't realize it until like the past couple of years. I learned once you do stand-up, you can basically do anything because I've had
Joe Rogan.
Yeah, basically you can because there's nothing worse than standing in front of people, and you have to do your 30 to 45 minutes regardless if they're laughing or not, or you don't get paid, and you're on the road and you need that money for gas to get back home.
You figure it out.
Or you just, like, there's times where I was just eating shit for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and you're just, like, going through the motions and trying to hurry up and get to your closer and just to get the hell out of there, you know. But I learned timing. I learned speaking in front of crowds doesn't bother me. Like, a lot of people freak out about that. Like, I can just talk with people in front of a crowd. Discipline, I guess. It's not a lot of comics were discipline, but as far as is, I can say this. I always lose my train of thought right after discipline. I think the best thing I learned is turning stage person on and off. So you can be this person and then kind of cut it. So like if shit's going on in your life, but you got to go talk with a business person, you can just switch on to that person. Yeah. And then once you're done, you can switch back. Right. You know, stuff like that. There's a bunch of things, and also improv class. Like I think improv class should be taught in business schools because it's not all about being funny. It's about, you know, being quick and on your feet. Yeah. Personable and just thinking on your feet and being quick about things. But anyway, so I did stand up. You can cut like half of this out. Don't want you to lose viewers or listeners.
No, this is intriguing.
Yeah.
My audience likes this shit.
Okay, good. Or they can just hit fast forward the 15-second one. So I did stand up, and I still wanted to move to LA, and I met this comic, and she lived in LA. Her and her girlfriend lived in LA.
Okay, are we leaving comedy? Because if we are, I've got to ask you one more question about comedy.
Nope, not leaving comedy yet.
Okay, I just want to get this out. Yeah. When you were talking about the fact that you had to like swim through a 30 to 40 minute set, did you ever feel like the inclination that you wanted to kind of take on the audience?
Sometimes. It's weird because I think almost every comic has this. They have their opening joke, and it either goes well or it doesn't. If it doesn't go well, you go with B material. And sometimes even B material, they don't give a shit. And sometimes you can do... You start to dive. You can kind of get them back, and that's hard to do. But yeah, I was never like the type that could like go after somebody because I never had good one-liner, like good like heckler jokes. You know, I just end up looking stupid. So I did go to jail on the road once. Though, so I just remember that.
How'd that happen?
I was driving. It was in Montana. I had a gig in, I think it was Great Falls. The next day I had a gig in Miles City. I thought this is before GPS on your phone. I had to print out the MapQuest. I thought it was an 8-hour drive. It's 12 hours. And so I'm hauling ass to get to Miles City.
Right.
And I didn't even eat yet. Like, that's how much of a hurry. I'm just starving. So I get there right as the show's starting. And it's actually a really good show. When you do good, people want to give you drinks. I had like a beer, and some people were giving me shots. And
Killed it.
I did really well that night. And so I got off stage, and I got paid. And these two old ladies came up to me, and they're like, probably late 70s. And I'm like, hey, great show. I'm like, thank you. She's like, do you want to go smoke a joint with us in the basement? I go, absolutely. And so I go smoke a joint with these two grandmas in the basement. Because you kind of have to.
Yes.
So I leave. I get done. I leave. I need to go to my hotel, but I'm starving still. And so I leave. I start driving, trying to find something to eat. And I get pulled over because I have a taillight out. And that cop lets me go. And that should have been a sign to go to the hotel. But when you have a good show, you feel invincible. I'm going to keep on going. And I get pulled over by a state patrol, and he's training that day. And so I'm doing all the walk the line and saying the alphabet backwards or whatever, which I can't.
Did you nail it?
No, absolutely not. Opposite. So they put me in the back of the cop car and with the handcuffs behind my back. And I still think that they're just going to take me to jail and then to scare me and then bring me back. And so I'm talking with the cops, just having a good old time, which probably isn't helping my situation. And I go to the jail, and they hand me a jumpsuit. So I change into the jumpsuit. I'm like, okay. And then like, here's a comb, a toothbrush, and some deodorant. I'm like, how long am I going to be in here for? I started to get a little worried.
Shit.
And so I'm like, but I'm kind of drunk, and I'm still feeling good about my set. And so I was like, all right, I'll just deal with this. And so I go in the jail, and I lay down, and in the middle of that, I have to share a cell with two skinheads from Tennessee, by the way.
Nice.
They're on their way to prison for drug charges.
Awesome.
And so I'm laying there in the middle of the night, and I don't know if the guy is talking in his sleep. I hear him go, and I have my back to him, and I hear him go, yeah, that's my girl. And so I think, okay, I'm about to get into a jail fight. And I rolled over, and he's just talking in his sleep. I was like, okay, cool. And there's a toilet, like they can't see this, but on the left side there's a bed where mine was, and the other side there was a bed, and then there was like another bed somewhere else. But right in the middle is the toilet.
3 fucking beds in there?
Yeah. I think it was a bunk, and so, because there's pods, and I still haven't eaten, and I refuse to use that toilet in front of everybody. And so morning comes, and I kind of sober up. Now I'm freaking out because nobody knows where I'm at, and I know, you only get one phone call, they say. And so I don't remember anybody's phone number. I remember my mom's number, and so I end up calling her, or before that, I'm waiting to make my phone call. They bring breakfast, and it's like rye toast and like this thick oatmeal. And I'm like, there's no fucking way I'm eating that, because then I'm going to use that toilet. And so pass on the breakfast. Guy in the next cell comes out, and he's about to go take a shower. He has 2 broken arms, and they put sandwich bags over his arms so he can go take a shower. And so I finally go in there to talk to the jailer. I'm trying to make the phone call, and the guy's like, what's the number? And I told him. He called. He's like, Mrs. Moser, this is so-and-so with the Montana State Police Department. We have information on your son. Please call us back. Click. And I'm like, can I call her back? Because that sounds like her son's dead. So, long story short, I get a hold of her. She's laughing. They have to wire my bail money, and the jailer has to go to Walmart to pick it up because it's such a small town. I get released, and I still hadn't eaten, and I go get something to eat. But then, like a month later, they want me to come back for court. I said no, and so I did my court at Kinko's over the video conferencing, and which back then there was really a delay. This is like 2006. So there's really a delay. So I'd crack a joke out of nervousness, and the judge wouldn't laugh, and then he would laugh. And so I just had to go to one treatment to show I wasn't an alcoholic. And they just basically wiped their hands clean because they didn't tell me what I blew or I had some money missing too. And I just thought like, it's a good thing I was a white guy going to that place because I think I would still be in Hazard County over there. But
it's fine.
Yeah. But anyway, again, you can cut half of this out. So I met this comic and her girlfriend, and I said, I want to move to LA, but like it costs money to move down. I was like, well, just come stay with us until you get on your feet. So they were cool enough to let me stay there. And so that was 2006. I moved to LA. So,
wow.
And then I did stand up here and there, but once I kind of accomplished that goal, I didn't really like stand up in LA.
Would you ever do another set?
Probably not. Last time I did it was at Joker's. I hosted, and I'm a terrible host. And it's fun, but I don't know, I'm kind of over it. I don't have that passion for it.
I have a buddy who is trying to get into stand-up, or he's been doing stand-up for some years, but I don't know if he's had any breakthroughs. That I've let him perform at the beginning of my rap shows.
Right.
So he's been able to, a couple times, get a set off, like 15 minutes or so, in front of a whole rap audience. It's really receptive to comedy.
Right.
Because rap and comedy are so closely related. And I think it's really interesting to mesh the elements in a show. Like same way how you have a DJ who can do solo stuff on a show. A DJ could even do solo shit between comedy acts. It's so universal in that aspect. And I feel like rap is no different.
Yeah.
So in the future, I continue to plan to do shows locally where I mix comedy with rap. I think that's where the world's heading. They want more bang for their buck. So buying one singular thing is no longer going to cut it. You need to buy things with dimensions.
Yeah.
So that's why I ask if you still do comedy, even just for fun, because I think there's something interesting about capturing something that's nostalgic and then kind of offering it to an audience.
Right.
You know, almost like an NFT, so to speak. Because like your performance would be a one of one.
Right.
So to speak.
Yeah, I think there's just there's a lot better comics out there than me that care about it more. I hadn't written a new joke in, 7 years.
Yeah.
And I just kind of, I get down to my joke and go, oh, God. I'm already bored with my set, and so I don't know. It just wasn't there for me anymore. It was really weird going from stand-up to improv because it's two different worlds where stand-up is solo, all about you, getting the laughs. Improv is about helping the group, and so that
part of the set.
Right.
Do you think I think it's interesting that it almost comes off as if you didn't have the competitive aspect to pursue comedy in that sense, where it was more of something that you did for self-gratification.
Yeah, I think that's fair because I like stuff I do now, very competitive. I'm happy for other people to do the same as me. I saw like, God, that's really good.
Because it's technical.
And it's funny because when I first moved back to Tri-Cities, I was trying to get into music videos, and somebody was like, hey, so-and-so does music videos, and just the ego of coming from LA and Seattle, I was like, okay, sure. I'm sure it's a Tri-Cities video, like some piece of crap thing. And then I watched it, and I'm like, holy shit, this is really good. Like, that was all your videos. Who's this Tory North guy?
See, I knew it.
Yeah. I quit the business right then. Went back to working at Roundtable.
That's right.
But yeah, it was humbling, and it was like, damn, that's really good. And then I'd see that stuff. I was like, I gotta try that. So because it was nice though, because I took their work. It's like I gotta.
Do you want to say who it was that you saw?
Yeah, I can do it. Justin Frick.
He
does really good stuff.
Who was the artist?
It might have been a Karma video or something. Yeah. It was either Justin Frick or it was. No, it wasn't Justin yet. I did see his stuff later. It was really good. Night Argent. Yeah. I saw their video. I'm like, damn, that's really good.
I've seen some of your videos.
Yeah.
And I think that what's really interesting is that you can so tell that you're from an older school of film because you care about the things that a lot of us care about.
Right.
Storyline, meaning, you want your shit to make sense.
Right.
It's like the 90s.
Right.
Your shit's like the 90s. That's what it's like.
I think that's a good compliment because I like, again, back to story, like it could be a one shot of something, and if you tell a story right, it doesn't need to have all these flashy whatever the hell song could be killer, but I can go down a checklist of smoking weed, throwing cash at the camera, and girls dancing, which that's not a bad thing. But I've seen some stuff where they have it, and this is just nitpicky, but it's like it contradicted. Like they'll have wads of cash, but they're standing in front of some broken down Honda Accord. Like maybe take some of that money and go rent a nice car, and just, you know what I mean?
The whole image.
Yeah, and do like you know how TV Cribs did it, right? And just rent out a place and pretend it's yours. So seeing stuff like that, where I think what annoys me is when it doesn't have to be big and flashy. I just want to see somebody put the work into it, like a pre-production. Put the work into before shooting it, and just.
But it's nice when there's some thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Because you could check all the boxes and not even have your brain in it.
Right.
But I think when somebody has a little bit of a like you said, storyline, not just storyline, but sometimes they have like hidden meaning to their shit, symbolism.
Right.
I think when you add that extra dimension, it really turns up your guys' craft to the next level. Listening to your story and hearing where you're going with this, I really want to know when, because the 90s reference is big with me, okay? Because when I got into the rap game on a professional level, my first mixtape was called The 90s Motherfucker. Because I like to incorporate a lot of 90s elements inside of my craft. Like, you'll hear samples from the 90s. You'll hear, like, certain instruments that you haven't heard on a record. Like, it could be 808s and hi-hats like the Dirty South, but you'll hear a sample that's from 1994. Right. And it's some modern version of the 90s. And that's what I feel comfortable at. I feel comfortable being the bridge between old and new. That's always been my thing. When I'm around somebody like you, it makes me want to revert more to my 90s soul. Where I'm somebody who believes that salvaging things rather than throwing out things and upgrading to the newest thing isn't necessarily the best thing. Sometimes it's better to stay in the time that you're in and really master that. Right. Sorry. So, where I want to ask you is the 90s. On a wide spectrum, what kind of effect did it have on you as a kid, as an artist, who you became?
I love the 90s, and I loved it back then because when like Seattle came out, Seattle music came out, like early 90s. I was in high school. Yeah. And so, 90 to like, I don't know, early 90s to mid 90s, music was so awesome. I mean, you had Seattle, you had Dre's Chronic, you had Snoop coming out, you had like a little bit before that, you had NWA, like you had attitude, whether it was rock, metal, or hip hop, there was attitude. And I just loved everything about the music back then. And my guilty pleasure, like going on road trips, because I love more heavy metal, death metal, like that kind of metal stuff. But my guilty pleasure is 90s hip hop and 90s pop. Like I'll put in like Slayer, and then I'll play Roxette, And so there's something about that time, even a little bit before like the attitude hip hop, like Belle Biv DeVoe, or like late 80s Heavy D and the Boys. Okay. Like I love that stuff. And the older I get, because I don't think we appreciated the 90s back then.
We didn't.
Because it seemed like as soon as the 90s were over, like, all right, shit's going south now for a while. Yeah. Like I don't feel like from the 2000s to now, there's really no personality. Like 90s had a personality, 70s had when you think of 70s or 80s, 90s.
This is interesting. Yeah.
You have, especially clothes, hairstyle. Like what was if I think of 2003, 2000, what was the style? What was the personality?
Baggy, like metallic, like modern. It was like futuristic. Right. Because if I remember the 2000s in hip hop, everything was oversized. Right. People wore large T-shirts, large, like extra large, like bigger than normal. Right. There was a boxed out look that kind of came with the 2000s aesthetic, as far as hip hop went. Right. But if you looked across the spectrum, you realize that Y2K really brought forward a more futuristic outlook amongst the masses. So things moved more towards like a bubbled out look or a metallic look with alien aesthetics. They wanted to make it more of like we're on our way towards the future. Right. And you would notice this because even when you went to like Walmart, Target, there would be like little like subtleties in the everyday items that would kind of lean towards like modernism, And you know this because when you leave the 90s where everything's really boxed out,
right.
like even the cars are a perfect example. How the cars went from being boxed out in the 90s, and then when the 2000s came, everything kind of had a curvature to it. The televisions.
Yeah.
The televisions went from being a literal box to being a screen in the 2000s.
Where they're 900 pounds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The cell phones. Like, you can go on through everything. Mm-hmm. So, like, there's always, like, a natural aesthetic that goes along with civilization's changes. Mm-hmm. And that's what's going on. If you look at the 2010s, the big thing that we really had to face was the culture war.
Right.
Because in 2010s, that's when the citizens really started warring with each other. You start to see fights about racial ethnicities or all sorts of crazy things within 2010 to 2020. Mm-hmm. Like, that becomes our main thing. We went from, like, looking up to the sky and wanting to go to Mars to looking at our neighbor, like, trying to figure out if they like us or not. Right. That became the natural shift. And even though, like, I think it's a good thing that we went from being so lofty and acting like we had no problems to actually facing our problems face to face, my question is, are we going to be able to get back on the same page and look to the sky again?
I think so. I think it's, I look at the 2000s, and this is a positive, but I look at the 2000s as if all the problems, all the crap that we've been through, it's kind of getting flushed. And I think eventually things will get cool again. Not that things are bad now. Like, I can't complain.
It would be like a middle ground that's more sustainable for both sides.
Right. Just be, like, for example, before I bought this house that I live in, I lived kind of in the hood over in Kennewick off of Vancouver and 5th. Mm-hmm. And there was this one dude and his family across the street, and I thought he was from Syria. But I would just wave to him all the time because I'm doing the math, like the color of his skin, where I'm assuming he's from, and then being in Tri-Cities, and his wife wore the
hijab.
Yeah, and so I'm sure that they didn't have the best time in Tri-Cities. I'm just assuming. Yeah. So I always made sure I waved or smiled or said hi or just like as you would do anybody else. Yeah. When he moved out, he came as he was literally leaving to go to his new house. He came to me and thanked me for always waving and smiling at him. And I'm like, I didn't think that was a thing where you need to be congratulated for. It should just be, if more people would just like say hi, wave, and not think the next person is scary, I think that people would be just less panicky. And
the magnitude of that is so profound. I don't want to gloss over that. That's so incredible that even though something that you looked at such a minuscule level, because naturally that's what you would do, so, right, was such a magnitude to him.
Right.
It really goes to show you how we kind of take certain things for granted because of certain like environments that we're in. Like in America, we're very privileged about a lot of things, very much so. That where people who aren't out in America, they come from a different place. They might look at something like a much bigger deal. Right. Because they come from somewhere where it is a much bigger deal in a different aspect, right? So I think that we forget that, me, myself too, as well. I have to check myself constantly, and I have to really be grateful. Just because this could all change in a fucking...
Exactly.
In a flip, right? So it's humbling. It really is to be in those kind of situations, but also I'm very blessed because I'm living a life where I'm supposed to influence and really lead in a powerful way. Because why would I be given all of this freedom and opportunity? Like, why would I have so much free time? Not just for me to sit on my fucking ass and eat the foods I want and watch Netflix until my fucking eyes are dry. Like, it's not that. What it is like for me to create something or to teach something, to serve something that's going to benefit people that are outside of me. I think that's what the free time comes from. Right. It's not necessarily for me to just be like, oh, self-care bitches, bath bombs. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Well, like, especially, like, there was time where I had to kind of check myself because I think there was one time I was just complaining to myself because there was too much food in the fridge and I couldn't find anything. I'm like, what are you complaining about? There was times where you were starving, and you had no money, and you're complaining about too much food in the fridge because you can't move something. Or like, we just got a washer and dryer, and it was on back order forever, and like we almost had to go to the laundromat. Like, God forbid.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, yeah, first world problems right there. So, but thankfully we didn't have to go to the laundromat. That's what was, actually I could have done your podcast on Tuesday because they were supposed to be there by 6 and they didn't show up till 8 o'clock. But they were traveling. But anyway, so anytime I kind of like bitch about something, I always think about, is this really the worst thing on the planet that's happening? Probably not. I have friends that had some really shitty things happen to them. It's like, could I go to them and go, yeah, you cut them off? I go, yeah, I understand your problem. But let me tell you about mine. I couldn't find the bacon in the fridge because it was too much food. Way too much food. You know, so I always try to, I don't know, check myself or just, I guess not complain about too much because it's really, my life is pretty good. I can't really complain. I will complain once in a while. But, you know.
See, I think that I can take from somebody like you, for example, where you say your life is pretty good. What nuggets or what gems got you to that point? Because that's something that people could take and they could actually turn their life into something that's similar.
It's weird because my whole life I wanted to work in movies, and that's all I ever wanted to do. And movies and then when TV came out, I would do music videos too. And so I got to go do movies or work with movies, and I got to see myself on the screen and all this kind of stuff. And I got to be on TV at 2 a.m. on Showtime or whatever the hell. And then I was in a movie where I got one scene with Frankie Muniz where I come out of the bathroom, and it's a classic movie called Pizza Man. And it was sold at Walmart. It's like, that's cool. It's sold at Walmart here in town. And it's like, okay.
I need an autograph version of that.
Yeah, I still haven't seen the movie. But all these things I wanted, I thought, this is like the pinnacle. And so I get there, and it was cool still. Like, it wasn't disappointing, but like it's that saying I always say is like, once you find out how the sausage is made, you don't want to eat it. Or like, once you find out that Santa Claus isn't real, it kind of ruins the magic. So it's not as cool. And what's cool now is I got to go do that. And now my thing I love to do besides creating is going home to my wife, my dog, do some gardening, watch TV here and there. And I really like that a lot more than having to go on the road, do stand-up, or I got to make sure that I'm in acting class, or I audition here or audition, because
it's more utilitarian.
Right. It's real, and it's those little things don't matter, and I look back on like commercials or whatever, and I'm not regretting like I wish I would have tried that. I see it as like I see that person as that's probably their 12th audition that day, and they finally got that one. I see what they all had to go through to get there, and they have more dedication than I do.
So there's not. I'm curious. Do you have like the sense? Do you have like the competitive sense in you to be creative, where you create something that's yours, that's uniquely yours? Like for example, like a series, or create a character that's supposed to grow outside of just one movie. Like, do you ever feel those kind of urges to do something like that? Yeah, I wrote.
My friends and I made this movie like back in 2009 called Dangerous, and it took forever to finish it. We shot it for like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
We finally wrapped shooting in like 2012, and then I finally finished it like last year. But all the characters were so great, like it could spin off into like an animation series, or each character can be their own thing. And there's a lot of that stuff that I want to go do, but I just don't have time yet. My Funny Stepdad stuff, I want to do a whole campaign with Funny Stepdad, which will probably be the next project after my documentary. And what I've always tried, like once a year, try to come up with a big project to do. Just to keep me from being lazy. And the documentary's been a 3-year thing, but so I always have to have something to accomplish that year, something to create to hopefully finish. But,
the documentary. I've been kind of waiting to get to this point, but
no questions about the documentary.
I think that I'm really interested in the documentary on a personal level.
Yeah.
Because I remember I was one of the first people to reshot into my recollection, because I wanted to be a part of it.
Right.
Because I feel like I've played an integral part of the culture that we have here. Sometimes by force, That's my nature, and I think that me being involved with something like this, even if it's for a small part of it, is something really powerful, because what I'm going to become. Because I haven't really even reached. This is just starting. This is like, for me, I just incorporated a new thing to my repertoire, podcasting. But outside of that, on my music level, I also incorporated something new, which is singing.
Oh, nice.
I now do singing, rapping in my art. So it has allowed me to create a new portal to walk through in a matrix-like sense, where I can reach possibilities that were no longer available for somebody like me. So I have the ability to create a song that overnight could become the biggest song. And I don't take that for granted. I understand what that power is. So I cater to it like somebody would a garden. The same way that I approach my podcasting, the same way that I approach any kind of media that I do. And I think it's really important for our listeners to understand something like this. That you can do more than one thing as long as all the things kind of play into each other. As long as it intertwines into each other. When you're doing one thing, you're doing all things. And I think that that's something really special when it comes to branding and marketing. If you're on that sort of like pathway, if that's what you want to start to head through, I want to talk about branding with some of my people. I want to talk about how important it is to create symbols that people can recognize visually, maybe even audio version or whatever. So somebody like a movie director, like yourself. Symbolism is heavy because you're going to put things in a scene that are going to speak to the visual aspect tenfold that audio could. Like Stanley Kubrick. He was able to put things in his scenes that really spoke louder than what was actually being served to you on a direct level. And I think that that's where his brilliance was. Like when you're a kid and they tell you to color inside the box and you build a whole picture around the box. Those kind of people are the ones who really, when they get in the position of power, they really change the way the world looks at things. Stanley Kubrick, I would say Kanye West is somebody who's like that. Because if you take Kanye West from the world, you take a lot of the world with you. You know, I don't care what anybody says. It's like when Michael Jackson died, when Prince died. A lot of the world went with them. There's a lot of kids who will never understand the greatness of Michael Jackson, but they'll always go back to the headlines that made him look less confused.
You know what's funny about, and I've had this conversation, I know we're not supposed to listen to Michael Jackson, but Thriller is a killer album.
Dude, I never canceled Michael.
No, and like I had a Thriller jacket as a kid. I think that was so important that it's not brought up enough, that because the fact that a white kid from Kennewick is sporting a Thriller jacket, you know what I mean?
That's pretty awesome.
And I was still into rock and metal back then because I had older stepsisters that were into Motley Crue and Ozzy Osbourne, those kind of shit, that I still loved to listen to. But I still like Thriller. Like it's the same thing with the Chronic. Like it's one of those things where like, well, I may not like hip hop, but the Chronic's a great album. Or you know, I like hip hop stuff, but there's just certain things that are just crossovers. Like Snoop, I don't know if there's anybody that hates Snoop. I mean, he's doing stuff with Martha Stewart. You know?
He's great.
You know? So it's like there's certain people, but
Ice Cube's a pin.
Yeah. Oh yeah, my shirt.
Yes, sir.
God, I'm so excited. I finally got to do laundry after a month.
Dude,
I got to have a lot of stuff.
That's a great shirt.
Yeah, I was pretty happy with the shirt.
I love Ice Cube.
Yeah, I like Ice Cube.
No Vaseline.
Yeah. Not so much for his movies, except for Boys in the Hood and Friday. But
Friday's great.
Friday's great. It's still good. I forgot where I was going with all that, but yeah.
No, we're moving in a great direction. The documentary. Okay.
One thing I'll say this.
Yes.
As far as ever like younger kids or whatever creating all this kind of stuff, failing is part of it too, and I think failing is okay. Like I've failed a lot of times. Most of the stuff I've failed at, but then you kind of learn from it.
But why is failing okay?
Because you learn. You learn. Like don't do that again. Or it's like, oh, that didn't work.
That it's costly.
This. Yeah.
That it's costly to make these kind of right.
Yeah.
Because like you're right. You learn in the failures, right?
Yeah.
But that's important to know that everything costs so much. Everything is expensive. If it takes a lot of your time, that was very expensive.
Right.
And people don't look at their time as their economy.
No.
that's their inventory. If you don't look at your time like it's something to guard, then you're really 2 steps behind.
Right.
So, like for example, us getting here together tonight, this really took a little bit of strategy.
Right.
Because, you know, I'm somebody who juggles my hats.
Right.
You do the same. So it's for us to get in one place is really important. Because our universes, I believe in universes where you have your universe, I have my universe. And then when we come together and we participate in interact in each other's life, there's a third universe of possibilities that pops up.
Right.
So the things that weren't possible in the individual become possible in the third.
Right.
So I look at life like this in a lot of senses. Like when hanging out with like rappers that you open up for. Like we opened up for Tech Nine, we opened up for like Mike Jones, Afro Man, Riff Raff, like a whole bunch of different guys. And what you realize is that when you interact with these people, you're opening up like some sort of portal, possibility. Like let's say I decide to do a song with Riff Raff, and it gets 1 million fucking views on YouTube. Well, now we're cooking with fucking gas. You know what I'm saying? And all it took was that interaction, and maybe $500, $1,000 on the spot. Like I got this money right here, right now. Because if they don't have to wait for the money, they'll take a lot less.
Right.
I don't know where I'm going with that, but to jump back to what we were talking about, the documentary.
What would you like to know about it?
The origins. Let's talk about like where the ideas kind of seeded from.
Yeah, and actually I just edited one of your spots because I break everything up into subjects. Like the subject that you actually close the subject is on making it, like what it is to make it and stuff. And you had like this great soundbite at the end. That really, because it's always good to. I like to have, you know. I think maybe that's another thing I learned from stand up, maybe subconsciously, is open strong, end strong. You know, you have a beginning, middle, and end. And so I always try to end strong on a subject. Or maybe if it doesn't end strong, it transitions into another story, whatever. But anyway, I had this idea like 10 years ago when I was living in LA, and there's this girl or woman singer, Carrie Ockery, who was in some bands in Seattle, and she was really, my ex-girlfriend really liked her, and it's like, actually I didn't go to school with her, but we went to rival schools. She's from Quentin, so, but she got a little bit of fame, and so, and I got to thinking about her, and then I got to think about other, like, band Loudermilk, and in the 90s, you had your Seattle scene, but then you had your scene here, too, that was completely different as far as music, and it's just like, I just kind of want to categorize, like, it was big in this bubble, but how'd they get there, what happened afterwards is fascinating to me. Yeah. Because Loudermilk got signed, there's a couple other bands got signed, this band should have got signed but didn't get signed. You know, there's all these things where we're all happy now, but once it turns into a business, what's that mean? You know, and so I just kept it on the back burner, and then when I moved back to here, I really started thinking about some more, and there's somebody put up a website with all the old show flyers, like from the 80s up until now. And one of the show flyers was a band Scream and Diddley Squat. Diddley Squat is from Richland. The bass player from Diddley Squat is in Foo Fighters.
Wow.
And the drummer from Scream is Dave Grohl.
Wow.
So 2 of the Foo Fighters actually played a show here in Richland at some crappy warehouse or whatever in 1988 or something like that.
Wow.
And so I thought that was really interesting. So I want to delve deep into that. I want to pick that scene apart and talk to people. What was going on?
Wow.
What was your, like, what is making it? Did you want to get on MTV, or were you just playing for fun? And you got both. So that's how it started.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. And so I was like, how did it get here? Well, there was a glam rock scene before. Diddley Squat was the band that changed everything. They're the ones that put on their own shows. They wrote their own music. And people saw that. It's like, I want to do that. And so that kind of sparked that scene, where it wasn't just cover bands.
It's more your traditional, like, what we were trying to do too.
Right.
Like, yeah.
And what was interesting going back and talking to some cover band guys, business was really good, and then karaoke came in and just wrecked it all. Like, because why do I need to pay a band $1,000 or whatever it was when I can pay this guy $200 and people can just sing? So that kind of wrecked that. Anyway, so that was kind of the genesis of it. And then as I'm interviewing people, because I'm interviewing people that are, you know, new kids that are in bands and new artists now, it's just like, you had your Seattle scene, you had our scene here, you know, you have, you know, the LA strip scene, you had all these scenes through history. The way the internet is, anybody can get exposure, anybody can get on YouTube, Spotify, whatever. It doesn't mean it's good. It's so saturated, and music is, you know, you don't have to wait till payday to go buy a CD like I did. You can just download it right now. So is music less special? And if that's the case, is there ever going to be a scene again anywhere? The way there's no record companies really anymore. There's kind of stepping stones to make it, but there's not really a goal to get on MTV anymore. So what is the end goal? And so that's kind of what it morphed into, you know. And then we still have the bands from my era that are still playing music now, but they're not trying to make it. They're just having fun playing music. So, and besides that, there's so many cool different genres of music here. There's death metal, there's hip hop, there's reggae, there's folk, there's, you know, pick your poison. It's here. And so I just thought that was really cool. Like, a town has that many, and everybody's really good.
And it's so defined.
Yeah. You know.
And you're right. Like, there's a level of, like, professionalism that is reached for some of these local acts that are in this region, where they could just instantly be picked up by some major entity, like, just like that.
Yeah.
You know, like, I know that I won't even see you on a radar if you haven't checked, like, at least 100 boxes. Like, there's so many different boxes that you have to check, but it's attainable. At least it's attainable. And I think that the ones who have been doing it for years and years and years are the ones that are actually fully there. So, like, I think that that's interesting to hear it from an outside perspective, because I've always known that there was just some thriving music scene that was even beyond my understanding of what it was. And that's why your documentary really stood out to me, because I felt like this would be the first time that you could visually see some of this stuff for real. You know, because of what you were about to bring.
Well, what's interesting is it's cool to have people from, like, my era, but it's also cool to have, like, your generation, that you're basically the bridge between here and here. And so to see that, whereas my generation is already come and gone, you saw this. There's definitely, I'm sure, a switch between old school and new school, and especially with the internet coming in. I think, and I could be totally wrong, but I think more kids went towards hip hop than starting a band.
Oh, that's facts.
But I don't know if that's true, because I wasn't here.
It was about how easy it was.
Yeah, because I can go and also discovering, like, the internet is good and bad. Like, bad as far as, like, oversaturation, all this kind of stuff, but it's also cool because I can just Google top 10 new metal bands, or top 10 underground. Like, a friend of mine has all this underground hip hop shit. I don't know where he gets it, but it's awesome. And I couldn't tell you who it is, and I don't know where he finds it. But it's great, and so, like, it's cool for the internet to have that too. So I think the internet really just changed, I think, that kind of thing. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see where it goes. Because record companies now, if you get signed, because I've interviewed 2 or 3 people that got record deals. Yeah, a country guy that sold like 1 million albums, and, you know, he's like, nowadays they sign you to a 360 deal where they own everything. Instead of just your CD, they own Tory, they own merch.
They take a percentage, a large percentage, but 30% of everything. You know, but at the same time, like, that's what artists are doing because they're lazy. Because you got an independent artist like myself, who I do everything myself, and I take every fucking dollar. Like, that's all mine. Like, from streaming to fucking selling merchandise to doing shows, every stream of revenue you could think of that it comes with life, I get that. And there's nobody who gets it before me. So that's important, because the labels nowadays want to offer. The only thing they really offer in addition is that they got a little bit of a network that they've worked out.
Well, they're more of a management company now, I think. So, because you can go, like, you can set up a recording studio here. You don't need like $100,000. You can set it up in your car. Like, Heart, which I really like Heart. One of their albums, they just recorded in their motel rooms as they went on tour. They had, like, you know, just a couple mics and Max or whatever. And
Heart? Max? When?
This was 2012. It's an album called Fanatic.
Oh, so it was a modern album. Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, when the fuck did you say
1972. They're the first internet band.
Cause that's some Watch the Throne type shit right there.
Yeah. But yeah, like, I don't know. I think it's so like it's such a Wild West thing right now, and also with streaming is cool because I'm just as guilty as anybody else, but also they're not paying people as much as they should. At least
right.
Big famous bands. So I don't know. It's interesting to see whatever. And my question always is do you think, and ask everybody, do you think Tri-Cities will ever become what Seattle was? Like Seattle exploded, or name a big scene that exploded, or is it just going to be like you cut your teeth here and go to a bigger city? You know what I mean?
I have a prediction.
Yeah.
And the answer is that we have the capabilities to go viral. Mm-hmm. And the reason being is because of the tragedies that have happened within the last 10 years that have gone viral. You have, rest in peace, Antonio getting shot in the streets because he was throwing rocks at cars, right? And then you have the guy who stabbed the bus driver.
Yeah.
Like, these are stories that have gone viral.
Right.
They've reached millions and millions of people outside of our region.
Right.
So there's a platform. There is one. That's all we needed to know. Now we can project people upwards in that direction, and then we can reach a massive audience. Right. So this exists, but people can't identify that because they're not able to see things outside of what's in front of them. But that's what's going on.
Right. And I think the talent is here, whether it's metal or it's hip hop or reggae or whatever. I think the talent is here to make another explosion, but talent means about 3%. Hard work means 97, or like it's right place, right time, or it's another question I asked bands and artists, like, why do you think nobody made it to Nirvana status out of here? Because we're from the same state. People write not same songs, but structure songs or whatever, and you'll get 100 different answers. Like it's not just you do this, and this, and you can become Nirvana, or you can become Kanye, or you can whoever. And I think people think, well, I'm really talented, so I should be rich and famous. I'm like, well, no, you're lazy. Did you promote your last show? Well, no, but I'm really talented. It's like nobody cares. It's like that's why some people get famous when they're really not that talented, but their work ethic is everything. And so it goes back to my thing of a lot of people want to be famous before they learn the craft, or you see people that get American Idol or something, then they go on tour because they never toured before, and then they might have a couple shows where they shit the bed, and then it's like the worst thing ever because they never dealt with it before. So
it really shows the fortitude.
Right.
I think the Tri-Cities is really unique because there's a level of like master level artists that are out here, like whether you're talking about like Brain Sick, Z, like all these guys that are out here, Firing Squad, or you're talking about like Karma and all these other guys. There's guys who have put 10,000 hours plus out here, and that's just speaking to one genre. Right. I know that you have like, who are some of the guys in the death metal scene? There's huge. Like the Drip, they got signed to
Relapse.
Yes, the Drip. Mortal Remains. Yeah. They were another, right? Is that right? My homies in Behold the Colossus. I'm actually going to get my buddy Dean, who was the vocalist from that band, on the podcast here pretty soon. He's a tattoo artist. He works at bands in town. But like, there's bands like Sincerely You, Voice of a Liar, Ashyless. Like, there's so many bands that were in a specific scene that never got the light. And they could get a lot of light and a lot of attention right now, which would be really important if they had music online. And I know some of them do. I would love to have a podcast where I offered, like my platform to them, to get themselves back out there if they have new music, or even just to redirect people to their old sound. I think that's important, and that's kind of how I would be contributing on a level like you are with the documentary. Because I think that there's something very unique about the quilt that you're kind of like sewing together with these visuals and the storyline. You're creating something that when you looked at it from like a higher perspective, you're staring at an art piece. And as you're going through it, you're starting to understand why it's art. Because it just gets better and better until it's over. Right. And I think that's what you're about to deliver with your documentary. I'm just really excited about what you have to bring to the table. What do you have planned after the documentary?
Actually, first I should say that it's at allagesdoc.com, and there's a Kickstarter now, which when this airs, there'll be a Kickstarter. Because I almost completely forgot about mentioning that.
Yes.
My goal is to have it done. And I hate to put a date on things because then shit happens. Because it was supposed to be done a year ago, then COVID happened, and I'm hoping to have a premiere in May at the Uptown.
Dope. And
then my goal is, depending on how much I raise with the Kickstarter, to get it on the Netflix and Prime, and that's the goal. And then throw it into some festivals and see what happens. And then there's so much good stuff in there that I cut out because of time that I'm going to turn things into a web series. Wow. So there'll be like a web series on 88.1, there'll be a web series on hip hop in Tri Cities.
So you have a channel already for this?
I have a YouTube channel for my music videos, but I'll throw it up there. But that's because that was it was a good problem to have, but everybody's interview was so good. Like I was hoping for somebody to be horrible, so I'm like all right, and cut them out because I have like 30 hours of content. I mean, there's more than that, but as far as putting into, I put everything into a
usable
project, And so I'm like, I don't want to waste this stuff because it's still like such cool storytelling of whatever, So that'll probably be a next year's project. But after the premiere, trying to get it out to like I said, Netflix and those kind of things, and then going back because I've already, as I'm editing, throwing these little tidbits into another folder. Like that's web series shit right there.
Yeah.
So because there's just lots of cool stuff in there, cool road stories, just stuff that it just doesn't work for the documentary, but would work for its own thing. So
what do you think about like Patreon?
There's some things that I just have never looked into it. I know what it is. It's like I have like I wish there was 10 more hours in the day. Then I could learn TikTok.
Yeah.
I could learn Patreon. I think it's people like it. I don't.
Because I think it's interesting because it allows you to set the tier price.
Right.
Like you can offer like different levels of content.
Right.
Like by like more access that you give
Right.
them, right? But you can tier it out to like maybe like entry level's $5, and then next level's like $25, and then super level's like $100.
Right.
And it's like a monthly charge. So like the more people that you get, they fall into those kind of subgroups. And depending on the content that you deliver on a consistent basis, it really determines how long these people stay subscribed to you.
Right.
So it's kind of like an OnlyFans where you don't have to show your dick.
Right. Oh, well, I was going to do that anyway. That's actually the cover of the documentary.
Perfect.
Yeah. Like that's one of the, like I have a list of like because I'm working with this team who specializes in fundraising for documentaries. They did their last one was the last blockbuster movie, and so they gave me a bunch of like lists like, hey, contact these people. I was like, oh, I never heard of them. Like, so, and this goes back to the work ethic where I know I have a good documentary and a good story, but if nobody knows about it, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. And so this is the hard work part of coming here. I got a radio interview on Tuesday, and throwing it up to this Kickstarter thing, which I don't. I'm terrible at promotion, but so it's a lot of work.
The cool thing about it, though, I feel like it won't be hard to get the word out there. Because something like this is definitely, there's an audience for it.
Right.
So, like, tapping in with people like me, like, I know how to reach certain people who normally wouldn't look into anything.
Right.
So, I think that's going to help. Word of mouth is always going to be great. It's an idea that sells itself in concept. You have to do very little on a marketing level because you can just sell it for what it is, like authentically. Because there's a real like hardcore aspect to what you're doing.
Right.
It's almost like a punk rock feel to it. Skateboarding background kind of feel to it. Like if you kind of stick to those aesthetics, it kind of sells itself. It really does. Just putting it on those marketing places or the streaming platforms is going to be what's pivotal. And then tapping in with those figures like me and other people, because I'm going to connect people with it that are influencers in their own right. But the whole idea is just to spread culture. I think it spreads very well between the different genres of music.
Well, that was the hardest part and it's going to be a hard part to do. Maybe it won't be, but like telling the story of the punk rock scene here, but also there was a hip hop scene too with Porky and those people. And so And I talked to Porky's nephew, and he gave me some cool stuff. And it's like trying to integrate those, because I had no idea there was a hip hop scene back then. You know, why would I? I was some kid from Kennewick.
Right.
You know, I didn't even know about shows at like the punk rock shows until I was a DJ at 88.1.
Right.
And none of my friends went to shows, so you know, so it'll be cool to tell that story of, you know, rock, punk, and hip hop in a small town. So hopefully, I can do it in an hour and a half.
Yeah.
You know,
I think that your ability to bring so uniquely of a different background together on a film is pretty important too. Because when you speak of the hip hop background, you're definitely talking to all different. Like my homie J Factor, for example, he's a rapper from Connell. He's Laos, I believe. He's been rapping since he was like 15 or something, but he's got records on records.
Yeah.
But unless you knew about the scene back in the day, you'd never know about him.
Right.
And I think somebody like him deserves to get the shine. You know?
Right.
Guys like G Style, who's also from Othello.
Right.
Guys like Chops, who's from Othello. Like these guys were really big in the 2000s, but unless you knew about them on the move,
Right.
you never heard about them. I think they're important to mention too, because I believe that we're building upwards. We're moving upwards, so everything underneath deserves some credit. You know, even if you're minuscule, if you played a part, you deserve some sort of a percentage of credit. You know, and that's how I look at it, because I believe that there's some sort of karma level to everything that we do. So I think that creating a scene in the Northwest is what the main objective is for someone like me.
Right.
And I think that taking a media agency aspect to it is the best way to go about it, because you can control culture on multi-level rather than just one. So making films, making songs, making content, like it all just plays into some big scheme. Not a scheme, but like it's a big plan. It's a plan that I have for the Northwest. What I want to do specifically with what I'm doing. Do you see yourself creating some sort of like hub for your content? Like maybe every movie you make on like a website where people can pay a fee to see your movies?
That'd be cool. I mean, I do have ToneyMoser.com reserved, and I looked at it, and it says it's worth $900.
That's pretty awesome.
Why? I have no idea. Maybe they saw Pizza Man. I mean, I have all these things. Like, I think that would be great. Before I would think of something, I was like, oh, that's a stupid idea. And then somebody else would do it. So, like, any idea, I'm like, I don't care if it's stupid or not. I'm writing this shit down. It would be nice to do that. But then on the ego of it, I'm like, I don't know, people pay for shit like that. I mean, I think they'll buy this documentary, but 2 years from now, would they still buy it? You know, I don't know.
When you go to Walmart, sometimes you buy those $5 bin DVDs, and you know that those DVDs are going to be trash, like the Pizza Man.
Oh, yeah.
So you still break the bread for the
Gotta see it. Yeah. So, I don't know.
You might have a website full of movies that you'd be like, these are C+ movies.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's the case.
Yeah.
But you could be selling like the most mid of product that you can think of, and there'd be an audience that would pay for it.
Right.
Like, let me give you an example with the Roku TV. There's a fucking there's an app that you can download on the fucking. It's like preset into it.
Yeah.
Where you can watch Jerry Springer, Steve Wilkos, Maury, like all those trash TV, all on one app, free.
I used to watch Maury all the time because I worked graveyard. And I would come home, and it just like that would be on it before I crash out for the day.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't stop watching this, you know. Especially when it wasn't. They find out that they're not the father, and they start dancing, you know. But
yeah, that becomes like iconic in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
I like Steve Wilkos.
Yeah, he throws the chair.
You know what I like about Steve Wilkos? When the crowd starts going, Steve.
Yeah.
Like he burns the person, and they're like, Steve. Like it just hit the spot.
Right. I haven't seen that in a long time, but I used to watch that too. But yeah, I'd like to, I guess at some point, collect all my media, just put it up, like with music videos or whatever on some site.
An app would be dope.
Yeah, I think an app would be really cool. It's just a matter of finding somebody who can build apps. And, you know,
I know a guy.
Yeah. I always have these ideas, and I have to get somebody to do it. You know, I have some other stuff in the can that I want to develop too. So, just getting it, this documentary. I just thought that I'd be the only one that would be into it, and then like everybody's like down for it, and it's all the doors. Like usually when I have a project, it's roadblock after roadblock, and the doors shutting. And this one's the opposite. Like every door's open, everybody's available. Here's some free music to use. Here's this. Here's that. Like
you can use any of my music, by the way.
Oh, I have that on my. Yeah, I have. I think I was going to use Matrix or Tesla, one of the two. Yeah. There's one other one because I built this playlist at work. It's Tri-Cities music, so I'll have Loudermilk, and I'll have you in there, and I have Cole and Lady Bird and Small. So
awesome.
So yeah.
I can't let you see all that.
But yeah, well, everything's just kind of been open, so it's just now the stress of now that I said May, getting it done.
What percentage would you say you're at?
It's hard to say because I haven't put it all together into one movie yet. Because like I said, I'm editing down the little subjects of
So it's all just ready to kind of like.
Yeah, so like I have like 20 clips, like or not clips, we'll call them folders. Like one folder is making it, one folder is will Tri-Cities ever be Seattle, that kind of stuff. So I edit those down to where I think they need to be, and then once those are done, then I'm gonna probably get note cards and figure out where shit goes, and then I'll throw that into one big timeline. Just so I'm not throwing everything into a timeline of 20 hours and trying to cut that down to it has to make sense. Like this subject has to transition to this subject, so you're telling a good story. So
when you throw it into a big timeline like you said, does it snap into place, or is it something that you have to pay very close attention to detail-wise to make sure that everything kind of goes?
Like literally snapping into place?
Yeah, like where you kind of, I guess in a sense where when you follow like a formula,
right,
and then everything kind of just falls beautifully into place.
Yeah, well, that's why I cut those subjects separately, because then I can see, okay, because even there's been a couple of them like, I'm not even going to bother editing this because it's boring, but then I was like, I'm going to listen to it anyway. And there'll be something in there like, oh, that's a good transition, or like, no, this is actually pretty good. I just need to cut out this, these 5 clips, but this one actually still tells a really cool story that I completely forgot about. And so you just kind of feel it. I think it's what's same with music when you feel like, all right, this song's done or whatever. You can just kind of feel that this is good.
This is the level that I
can
pass.
Yeah. So.
Real quick.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you if you had like any kind of like final thoughts for my audience. Like I want them to really, because I want to do maybe a part 2 with you after May, because I want to see where you're at in the world after you release something like this. But if people wanted to get a sample of what you have to offer, whether it's a music video or a web short or something like that, where could they find that at?
Hold on, I think I should have wrote. That is my YouTube, because I have it all on YouTube right now. My YouTube page, Moser Work.
Moser Work?
Yeah. So,
MOSER
WORK.
Okay.
Yeah.
On YouTube.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I
have
your Instagram?
Instagram is, I have a couple different ones. I have Moser Work, and then also the all ages is all_ages_. Is it doc or show? Because it's all ages show. Hold on a second. I should have wrote this down before I came over. All ages doc, but it's all_ages_doc. And then it's allagesdoc.com. And that's where you can find the Kickstarter too.
Yeah, perfect. I've enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah,
I think that I picked up things from it. I want to listen to it over a couple of times to make sure that I got what I got. I want to do a round 2 with you.
Sure.
I want like in May or something like we were saying. Is there anything you want to any kind of final thoughts you want to say to our audience?
No, just kind of stay tuned to this and think it's not just it's not just gonna be a metal documentary or punk documentary. I'm really trying to incorporate everything. Like if you're in your 20s, you want to know what the music scene was like in the 90s. Before internet.
Yeah.
Where we had to give out flyers to make sure people, that was their social media. Hopefully people come to the show,
A little bit more rough around the edges.
Right, you had to, you know, get chased off by school security because you're throwing all the flyers in all the cars, and you know, hearing stories like that of like what it used to be, and what, you know, and it's what's interesting to me is all the musicians back then and hip hop artists, they wrote these great songs, and they're like 19, they're 20 years old, they're, you know, so I guess just keep an open mind with this documentary. And I know that some people are like, well, why didn't you interview so-and-so, or why didn't you know, and most likely it's because they declined, or I couldn't get a hold of them, or just scheduling conflicts. I've tried to get everybody in this area. I wanted to keep it to Tri-Cities because if it was going to expand out, but it's like that's too big. I can't. There's already enough. So yeah, just stay tuned to it.
Stay tuned to it, and it won't be too long before you have something for everybody to consume.
And there's a new trailer. It'll be out by the time this comes out. But new trailer coming out on Monday, I think.
It'll be on the YouTube channel. Okay. Thank you again for being on the podcast, and we're gonna sign out. Tri-Town Tory live from the Northwest.